All right. So today we're going to be talking about playing with twist blocks. And what that means is that I've got these files of twists in front of me, and we're going to be using these files to make new patterns to see what we can see and see what there is to learn about. So, first up, I want to bring attention to the fact that this is a file that I have created. So this is the square blocks file. And if you look in the description below, you'll see a way um, to get these for yourself. I may not have it up right now with the live, but it'll be up with the recording. Um, and then there's also the triangle blocks file. And along with these, so you see that there's a grid in the background, there's the shape in the background. There's these other files that are the bases for the crease patterns. So these are the square base and the triangle base. There's also a triangle base on a square outline. And what these files let you do is not worry about what's going on with the grid. You can just copy and paste things over, and I've found it extremely helpful in my diagramming when I'm looking to just get something on the page quickly or explore new ideas. So let's take a look at these blocks and how to use them. I'll start with a square pattern because this is kind of the simpler case. And let's take a look at the options here. So I've got closed square twists, open square twists. If you see me looking to the side, that's because this is all on my second monitor here. Hybrid square twists, isoarea twists, both open and closed. Diagonal squares, in case you want to have this kind of square with your right triangle twist. These are going to match up with these diagonal pleats. The right triangle twist, both closed and open. And some advanced square twists. We've got a double open, a triple open, a cluster of twists. You can see one of the edges on this has been flipped. So this is something you would probably want to pre-crease in advance and then put in. And then these compound open and closed squares. So what I'm going to do here is grab two twists. When I'm teaching tessellations by tiles, I'll ask questions and be like, okay, do we want twist A to be open or closed? Do we want it to be front or back? Do we want twist B to be open or closed, front or back? And we can get an alternating symmetry from that. So what I'm going to play with today is I'm going to use a closed front twist, and then I'm going to grab a hybrid square as my second option. Now, one thing I want to be careful about here is having the handedness of these two twists be different. So I chose a right-handed first twist. I'm going to choose a left-handed hybrid twist on the back for my second twist. I'm going to hit Control-C to copy. Then I'm going to come over to my square template file, and I'm going to Control-A to select these two line styles. We don't need them in this case because we've got our blocks. Delete those, Control-V to paste our new situation. Now on this file, it's easy to tell where the center is because every 8th grid line is bold. So there's no guessing around where the center's at. And then I'm just gonna drop this nearby. Since it is on the back, I think I'm going to make it a little bit closer together. And I'm gonna also make a copy of this twist and put it up here so I can see if I want it closer in the other direction as well. I think I just want it closer in this direction. So I'll delete that one, so I just have to make these changes once. I'll hit F2 to bring up the Edit Paths by Nodes tool and zoom in so y'all can see. I'll click here, hold down Shift, click again to select more things, and then select just those end segments, those end nodes, and drag that in. If I were to select the whole segment, I would, well, and then drag an end, I would end up dragging the whole thing. So I can do this, and then going back to F1, the whole thing stays grouped. And I have a choice here. Do I want this to be rotationally symmetric? Do I want it to be, or do I want it to be fourfold? Do I want it to be twofold? Let's say I do want it to be fourfold. I'm going to duplicate that hybrid twist, Control D, and then rotate it, and then duplicate this twist. If I have the rotation there, then I'm going to need a little more space on that one. So this is me playing around. I haven't figured this out in advance. So I think the easy thing to do here is not to rotate this twist. Put it back there. So then when I duplicate my closed square, it just copies over. And I'm noticing that I have the same spacing, 3 grid spacings on between the mountains on the left and on the right, 3 spacings between the valleys on the bottom and the top. And I'm noticing also that there's this shift of 1 spacing off of both of these, and a shift of 1 spacing top and bottom as well. So that's going to be my seed for this particular play trial. And I'm going to select all, Control G to group, duplicate that, and just drag and drop. The reason why I group the seed is so that if I ever click off of it, I can easily get back to the selection that I have. Now, you'll notice that my things are usually snapping to grid. That's because I have snapping to grid enabled, so snapping at all, and then snap to grids. And if it didn't, then I would have a much harder time using this. So if I've got my seed all laid out and ready, I can just duplicate over to fill the space. You can see there's some interesting glitching going on there. I can just zoom in and out a little and get it to come back. But Inkscape is fairly reliable. It doesn't usually have issues. But, you know, all software comes with a cost of some kind. Inkscape is free, and so the cost is a little bit of user experience. So I'm noticing some places where the pattern doesn't quite reach all the way to the edge. So I'm going to just grab some of these groups. This is where the groups really come in handy, and fill that in. And I'm grabbing from places that are outside of the heavy square boundary. So this actually comes all the way to the edge. I don't need to fill anything more in. And I can select all, group it all. And then here's where the planning in the file really comes in handy. So if I go to the Layers menu, I've got this mask up top. And that's super useful. And if I click the eye to turn that on, I can then duplicate the mask, click that group crease pattern. So automatically I came out in the pattern layer, and then hold down Shift and select the mask, object, clip, set. No need to go around and tidy up all the edges myself. I can just clip it and move on with my life. So that's one way to play with square tiling things. Now I want to move to the triangle tiling stuff. So I'm going to bring up the triangle blocks and the triangle template file. Again, I don't need those extra line markings, and just like the squares, I'm already in the pattern layer and it's unlocked, ready to paste stuff into. So going to the blocks, I'm going to, let's do something a little more advanced than just alternation here. Let's throw in some rhombi as well. So if I was doing just a straight alternation, there's actually a couple ways that I could do that. I could do a hexagon and a triangle and switch back and forth between those two. I could also choose 2 rhombi and go back and forth between those. But what I want to do today is play with some different ways of arranging the hexagons, triangles, and rhombi. So I'm going to start out with a closed front hexagon twist that's right-handed, just because it's a nice place to start. And then I'm going to grab a left-handed rhombus twist. So I'm going to be putting the rhombus right next to the hexagon for now. And I'm going to grab a right-handed, actually, you know what? I'm not going to do the closed, yeah. So I'm going to grab all of my right-handed triangle options just in case I need them, because with this particular tiling with the rhombus right next to the hexagon, it's very particular which triangle it'll accept. So I'm just going to grab all of those and paste that in. So I'm going to shift things over so my hexagon is centered. I'm going to stick my rhombus next to my hexagon, and I can see from the spacing between these 2 valley folds, I'm going to get a tube pleat, which is a good spacing. It means there's not going to be extra overlaps, so I think I'll stick with that spacing, not modify the edges. Then I'll duplicate that rhombus, go over to the transform menu, go to rotate, we'll do it 60 degrees counterclockwise just because I like working on the right hand side. And now I want to see which of my triangles will fit in to this space. So I'm going to try, and actually I'm going to show some ones that don't work before I show ones that do. So if I try to put in this triangle, I can't put the center of the triangle inside of the rhombus, which it would need to line up both of those pleats. And so that's not going to be a good option. So I can go ahead and delete that one. I'm going to next try the open triangle, and for the same reason, if I line up my pleat down below and the pleat above, then my triangle is really overlapping the rhombus. And so if I try a open on the back, one of the things that I notice is the distance from this corner of the rhombus to the triangle and the distance from this other rhombus to the triangle is different. And so if I want precise sixfold, or actually, if I want these to be my repeating unit, more or less, I would have to fill in more triangles for it to be a repeating unit, then this is not going to work out. There's going to be something that's going to change as we go along. But there is a way for it to work out that I will show you later. But if I slot in this closed triangle, then it works great. It's the same spacing from this corner as this corner. That makes it a threefold position. And I'm just going to shorten these pleat lines so I don't have overlaps, I don't have anything overly bold. And that can just slot in. Now, if I want to make a repeating unit out of this, if I want to have hexagons coming out on either side, if I want to have the same relationship between the hexagon and the rhombus on both sides of the rhombus, so if I want to have my sixfold position in the hexagon, my threefold in the triangle, and my twofold in the rhombus, then I'm going to have to duplicate some more triangles and another rhombi as well, because the the triangle is going to be shared by 3 hexagons. There are 6 triangles around the hexagon. It's going to be shared 3 each, so I need 2 triangles. The rhombi are going to be shared between 2 hexagons. So if I want to do this, I need to have 3 rhombi, so 6 divided by 2 is 3, which is where I'm getting this calculation. So I'm going to select both of those, duplicate them, and I'm going to rotate 60-degree backwards. Make sure that apply to each object separately is not selected, so they move together. And bam, I've got my repeating unit. And I can group that, duplicate, and you can see that it repeats over very nicely. But what if I want to do something a little different? What if I want a different repeating unit? So if I undo here, ungroup, what if I want to repeat all the way around before I repeat the whole thing? So here's something I can do. Since I've got 2 of them, I'm gonna do rotation of 120, and then I just need another set with an extra triangle. Rotate 60, and I'll copy this triangle over. Okay, so what if I've gotten all the way out to here? Can I use this as a repeating unit? And the answer is actually yes. I can take this, and I've got to duplicate it first, and I can line it up like so. And just to prove that that's going to work out well, you can see I can copy this over all the way around, and everything's still playing nice. Well, that's interesting. That is interesting indeed. And actually, this is the kind of symmetry that my lens garden pattern that I have been talking about a lot this week uses, instead of having the previous symmetry where there's a hexagon right on the other side of the rhombus. So now let's play with this another way. Let's say that we want to use that open triangle instead of the closed. So I'm going to get rid of most everything here. So I'm going to save the center and the rhombus and a second rhombus so I can tell exactly where the alignment's going to be. And then I'll bring back that open triangle, line it up in here. I'm going to need to edit my corners to make sure nothing's overlapping. And I'm going to go ahead and leave this outer edge on its own. But I'm going to edit these guys because that outer edge I'm not actually sure that I'll need to edit yet. Bring this in and it's sitting pretty. So what I'm going to do here is show you a little trick. I'm going to get rid of that rhombus. I'm going to duplicate these. Actually go ahead and group them. Rotate 180, so that was 2 rotations of 90. And then I'm actually going to go ahead and group these two as well. Select both of these on either side of that hexagon, duplicate, rotate 60, duplicate, rotate 60, and they're already in place, no need to change anything. Awesome. So from here, if I group that, oh, still got to duplicate, and copy up, I can actually add whatever spacing I want along these two pleats between repeats. And this is just a general trick. The triangle twist is no longer in a position of threefold rotational symmetry. The threefold position is out here. So that's pretty cool. When we had our first version, which I didn't save, I just erased, but I think I have another copy of that file. Let me not move the movie, but let me bring that up because this is something that I've come across before. Yeah, here we are. Here we go. So with this pattern, and I'll turn off the skeleton. Yes. This is precisely the pattern that we were working on before, where we have our hexagons in the center, our rhombi making two pleats out from that. We've got our closed triangle twist on the back. And you can see the difference between that and this is we just have that open triangle, which is no longer in a position of threefold rotational symmetry. The threefold position has shifted out, and then our twofold position is in between these clustered repeats. As opposed to, on this pattern, the threefold position is in the triangle twist itself. You can see there's a hexagon on all three symmetric positions. Each pleat goes 2 spacings and hits a rhombus. And then those rhombi centers are twofold rotationally symmetric positions. So by shifting that symmetry out, we're able to create these different variations and make some new designs. So that is how I play with my tile blocks and my twist blocks. And I hope that y'all will see what fun it is and pick up some copies for yourself. So that's going to be all today, unless there are questions. And I will go ahead and end the stream.